Oh, it's gonna pain me to admit this, but you know, this is Tabletop Alchemy. Greetings, good humans, and welcome to Tabletop Alchemy, where sometimes I just sit and jabber, so you can put me on in the background while you do your hobby stuff. And, you know, you can have something to listen to. And we thank our patrons for supporting such little, what would I call today's video? Little confessional, I guess. Let me phrase that correctly. We thank our patrons for supporting these little, moments of confessionalism. It almost sounds like professionalism, but it's confessional in nature. Yeah, I hope you guys all have some hobby stuff to work on, because there's not going to be much hobby going on in today's video. I'm going to talk about something that's maybe prevented me from doing a little bit of hobby in the most recent last few weeks or so. Something like that. Let's get into it. So, a few months ago, I mentioned that there was a lack of work, lack of day job stuff happening, and that has only gotten worse. I'm not here to bitch and moan about you know, the state of things in the world, in our lives, in my life, whatever. Things are what they are, and I've had to go back and watch a couple of my own videos to remind myself that hopefully there's an upcoming. After the down, you know, I like to say that we all, life is like a roller coaster. There's always going to be downs and there's going to be ups, and I'm hoping that's the case. But anyway, I've come to realize something about myself. I think I kind of knew this subliminally, but I wasn't ever able to put my finger on it, or maybe I wasn't willing to just sort of face it. And I'm kind of drawn face to face with it now, and I thought I would just talk about it a little bit, see if any of you out there experience the same thing or not. I'm sure there are some people who experience the same thing, and I'm sure there are some people who don't. We're all humans, we're all slightly individual, so we all have different ways that we react to things. So what I found is that my ability to be creative or to work on my own projects seems to be hampered in small ways or big ways when I don't have sort of a sense of security. Now, a lot of my friends would tell you that my personal sense of security is sort of a few levels kind of lower or crazier than their senses of security. Like, I can deal with, I mean, it's just a freelancer's life that I've lived for the last 20 years, right? And, you know, the ups and downs and the feast and famines and that sort of thing. I'm kind of used to that. And I'm used to you know, I'm used to seeing the bank account dip quite a bit before it comes back up, and, you know, just rolling with the flow and having faith. And maybe that's why I haven't come to this realization quite yet, even though there have been times in the past where I can look back and now I can correlate all this stuff, and I've come to this sort of realization that my ability to create, my ability to work on my own projects, my ability to be imaginative and, yeah, just to create things does in some ways hinge on my psychology, my brain having some sense of some kind of security at like a base level. When things get really squirrely and I start to actually worry about things like bills and things like food and things like rent, stuff like that, then my ability to work on things imaginative and creative is hampered, which all stands to reason, I guess. But, you know, there's like a reason if someone's feeling psychologically unsettled or you know, has something, you know, if there's heavy stuff going on in life, of course, it seems like logical that you know, they wouldn't be able to churn out the next chapter of their novel or whatever creative thing that they're doing. And the reverse of that, or I should say another facet of that, though, is sort of what's the term I'm looking for? The tortured artist sort of thing, where maybe true art requires some negativity in one's life because you channel that and it becomes art. I'm specifically thinking of like, a painter, like painting these rage-filled images by brutally smashing paint onto a canvas and whatever. And then, maybe it turns out to be something pretty cool and people want to, they buy that later on down the road or whatever. So I'm sure there are people who do react like that and are able to produce things while they're in like a completely stable mental state, I guess. Now, and I'm using the word stable in relation to mental state, not in a very loose manner here, right? None of us are truly stable, right? I mean, a lot of us are, we try to be Zen. We try to go with the flow. We try to be stable. We're not always super stable if we wanted to be perfectly honest with everybody. But anyway, so I've definitely found that that's what I've been running into. Like, I've had a lot of free time, unfortunately, in this particular case, the last couple months, and I have not utilized that time in a productive manner insofar as doing my own projects. I am working still, like on my Cascade game, just very, very slowly at the moment. And when I took my 2 to 3 weeks off from this channel during Christmas and New Year's, so at the end of December, one would think that, hey man, well, you've got like 3 weeks of time and you have no work, so you're sitting around and you've got plenty of time to do stuff. So why aren't you getting things done in the hobby space, on your own projects? You've got Cascade, you've got, I don't even want to get into all the projects I've got going on. It makes me depressed thinking about it. What I did for those couple of weeks is and this is the admission that I'm kind of ashamed to admit, but I've mentioned this years ago in one of my Tabletop Alchemy videos. I talked about my potential addiction to video games and how video games kind of function like a heroin for me. Don't take that like literal. I'm not trying to downplay real heroin addiction. I'm just saying that for me, video games do provide this very attractive, very addictive call to my brain to sit down and sort of cloud your mind and not think about things, and then all of a sudden you realize a week has gone by. Now, my video game of choice that I got into, or went back into, is not nearly as bad as some of the real-time, like first-person shooter type games that I would really lose time to. Or like MMOs or whatever that I lost time to in the past. I played a bunch of Minecraft, which I do like Minecraft, and I do think that Minecraft is not the way that I play it, is in a way that a lot of people play it, for the building aspect and sort of creative aspect within that game. Minecraft is kind of like Lego, where it can be kind of a medium as opposed to just a video game. And it's not real time, I can pause it and walk away, so there isn't that weird time crunch pull that you get from like real-time MMOs that are happening all the time and you can't really pause the game. That's ways they get you to stay in those games and play. They trap parts of your brain into it's just like an addiction thing, and I can identify that process because I've been subject to it. But yeah, so I played Minecraft for about 3 weeks, and even within that time frame, I have a world that I've had for a few years, and then I even had a true hobby experience with this digital platform where I am kind of embarrassed saying this, but in a couple of weeks, I probably put about 40 to 50 hours. If we're going to be really honest, I probably had put about 40 to 50 hours over a couple of weeks into what I was building in my world in that game. The morning of Christmas Eve, there was a lot of rain and stuff here in Southern California, and there were random power outages. And I had gotten up in the morning and I was like, it's Christmas Eve. I don't have to do anything today. I'm just going to sit down and play Minecraft all day. It's going to be great. And I had my coffee and I sat down, I opened up my world, and I realized that there had been some power outages, but everything was up and running, so I didn't think too much about it. So I opened up my world, and just this bizarro microsecond timing. Minecraft opens a game file, it opens a world up, and it has a few seconds where it like puts all the world into memory. And then, boom, it opens up and you can start playing the game, right? And just happened to be my luck that day that I opened up the world, and in those 2 seconds of where the game was resolving or generating the world or putting it into memory, whatever it's doing on the back end, there was a power outage. And I knew it. I felt it. I just sometimes, you know things. You're like, oh, that's not going to be good. And yeah, an hour later when the power came back on, I tried to load up my world, and it was completely corrupted. And it hit me pretty hard. I was like, dude, like I've put in a lot of, not only had I put in a lot of time just in the last couple of weeks, but this is a world I've been playing on for like I said, like 3 or 4 years at this point. Yeah, it was completely corrupted, unusable, right? Like it finally did open up because I was just a glutton for punishment. I was just like, I was curious. It's like I really wanted to see what did it do to the world. And yeah, just basically, yeah, the computer file had certain areas of the map that were rewritten and reverted to natural world generation as it would have done when the world was first created. So I had like, structures that I had built that were now cut in half, and there was like big mountains growing out of them and trees, and things had been moved over like, X number of pixels or whatever. It was a travesty. And it literally felt pretty bad. I was like, dude, this is almost as bad as when I like lost a hard drive. The first time I lost a system hard drive on a computer, which, it's a learning lesson. Everything's a learning lesson. I did happen to go back and check. I was like, did I make a backup copy of this? Because I know periodically I would save. You have to manually go in and like save backups. I think they fixed that now where you can do it in the game. But previous to the current editions of the game, you would have to back up your world. You'd have to go into it on your own, go into the file system, pull the game save, the world save, and back it up somewhere. And I was super surprised to find that I had backed it up 10 days prior to this incident happening. So again, I only lost 40 to 50 hours of work. I was building this very complicated machine, not my design. It's, I don't know how to invent things very well. So I copy, I go and copy designs that other people have done for these crazy machines and stuff. I had a world save that I was completely surprised by and kind of amazed by, and the core of the machine, I had backed that world up. Again, I have no memory of saving that game file, like backing it up somewhere, but I had backed it up, and it had like the core of that machine that I had been working on. It was saved, but none of the other stuff, those other 40 to 50 hours, was gone, and I had created a bunch of other things in that time frame. So eventually, over the next week, I did go back in, and I have gone through and actually finished out that whole build that I was working on. And all together, not counting restarting and putting the hours back into it, all told, that probably took me 100 hours to build this whole like area. The point that I'm getting to is that it's a video game, and I've been so stressed mentally that it just became so much easier to just sit down and play this video game that takes no physical effort. It takes mental effort and whatever. It is a design building game, so I am doing that with it. So it's like, it's giving me a creative outlet, but it's not like physically demanding. And, it's just easy to do. I have a tendency to fall into ruts of easiness, just like a lot of humans do. The stress has, made it difficult for me to like even sit down and paint a miniature. I've actually been like, I cleaned my desk last week, right? I mean, I cleaned up the whole area. Even that was just a monumental task, not to do the actual cleaning. Yes, the actual cleaning was a pain in the ass, and it took a day or two, which doesn't show up on camera. But the monumental task was to get myself to actually do it. That was the monumental task. There's this sort of signal to noise ratio thing. There's like, in the universe, there's something called the cosmic background radiation. There's like a low noise level visually or electronically or electromagnetically. That's like the noise of the universe from I don't know, but it's like in all of our radio telescopes. It's in all the visual telescopes, and you kind of maybe not the visual telescopes. I'm not really sure how it all works, but it's out there. I kind of always equate like my mental stress level to that, this sort of cosmic background radiation. We all have like a certain level of stress, just about, stress doesn't have to be a huge thing. We can all have like small stress over just, I got to get a project done. I got to do this at work. I got to clean my house, whatever. Those are all like little stress points. But then, that stress level can rise when you're uncertain about other things, if you're looking for work and whatever, stuff like that. And then the stress level rises a little bit. So that noise gets a little higher, that stress level gets a little higher, and it starts to mess with the higher functions in the brain, I guess, or something. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up. I'm just trying to draw like visual allegories, because that's how I think about things, I guess. My stress level is pretty high. It's just definitely impacting my ability to sit down and be creative and to do stuff. And this is another thing I'm a little ashamed to admit, but it's all right. It's I'm sure there's other people out there who feel like that. It's like I get into a headspace where I know I need to be like spending energy, say finding work. So that's one thing. And then the idea is like, well, I can go do like this hobby stuff as I have free time, but I don't know if I shouldn't be working on that. I should be working on finding the job thing, or doing a job I should be working on finding a job instead of painting a miniature. But then, because there's no return to come back to that. Like, paint a miniature is not going to help me pay rent. But then I don't do that, and then I go look for work, and then that becomes super depressing, and then I just go back and I play video games. It's a bummer. I need to have income coming in some form to be able to work on my own stuff that will not generate an income. And I think there's a lot of people out there that might say like, well, take the time and turn your own projects into money-making projects. And it's very easy to say to somebody. I don't know how to really do that. Yeah, I'm writing a game that I would like to play, and sure, I would probably put it up for sale, but I don't imagine for a half second that it's going to do anything like pay bills or anything like that. It just isn't that sort of a thing. Yeah, so I don't know. Is there anybody else out there who feels like this, or do you experience this whenever you have some stress in your life that hinders how you are able to be creative, or your creativity level? It does seem to me like it's probably maybe a pretty common thing, but it's definitely a thing for me, and I definitely understand how it works now, and I can see the functionality of it, and I realize that I am susceptible to that. And it's hard to figure out how to mitigate that. And I'm trying to navigate it and figure it out. And I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I don't know. Life is weird. Things happen in weird ways. I don't know. It's kind of one of the few times I've stood on a precipice and not been able to convincingly tell myself things are going to be okay. Oh, man. But I'll tell you what. I'm laughing all the way down. All right. I will see ya.